And finally, we are joined by Nicole Stott. She is an artist, an aquanaut, a mom, the founder of the Space for Art Foundation. She's a retired NASA astronaut. She's flown on the space shuttle. She's lived 100 days in space on the International Space Station. And I don't know if I have this right, Nicole, but I have to ask: were you part of the mission that sent the first tweet from outer space? And I also have you down as the author, certainly the author of Back to Earth: What Life in Space Taught Me About Our Home Planet and Our Mission to Protect. The tweet question
Yeah,
first.
gosh, the tweet question first. Yeah, and I think that was that like 12 years ago, like yesterday or something? It was like somebody posted about it. But yeah, it was like the first live Twitter interaction, I think, from space to a group of people here on Earth. So
Were those
yeah.
your thumbs?
I mean, probably.
That is fantastic. Well, let's talk about your book, Back to Earth: What Life in Space Taught Me About Our Home Planet and Our Mission to Protect It. Um, as I said, I loved your book. I needed it with all that's going on in the world. It was such a beautiful, optimistic view of what we need to do. But I want to start with the exciting stuff too. It's all exciting, but you're an astronaut and an aquanaut. You lived 100 days in space and 20 days plus underwater. What is it like to live in a unique environment like that? What kinds of unexpected things did you encounter?
I think, well, one of the things I think that's interesting is how just really wonderfully, like, going to live and work underwater and, like in the Aquarius habitat for, I think we were there 18 days, like how perfect that is an analog to what it's going to be like to live and work in space. And that's everything from the fact that, Aquarius, it's about the size of a school bus. That's about the size of one of the modules, on the space station. I think the most perfect thing about it is that when you go down to 60 feet underwater, scuba diving, and you're down there for more than an hour, you can't just swim safely to the surface, right? Your body's so saturated with nitrogen. So you're in this place, you're living in this place, and you have to, as a crew, figure out how to deal with anything that might go wrong there. You can't just escape to the surface. And the same is true on your space station, right? You can't just jump in the spaceship anytime you want and
Mhm.
bail and head back to Earth. So just perfect in every way, from the way we live there and the way that we work there as a crew, the science we're doing, the exploration we're doing. But and people look at me saying, like, what do you mean go live underwater to learn how to live, to
Mhm.
live in space? I'm like, yeah, it's the great, and I highly recommend it. I mean, if you get the chance to,
Mhm.
go do a mission like this, and I'm sure Philippe and Ashlyn have, visited this place as part of their exploration and science and experience, and, hopefully can attest to the fact that it's just so cool to have this perspective of inner space where the planet just seems to wrap around you, and
Mhm.
then to use that perspective and take it to space where you're kind of wrapping around the planet, right? You've got
Mhm.
this macro view now, and just be able to compare those two things and appreciate them, I think is really the key to it.
Your book starts off with that view from space. You talk about the famous photograph and just how stunning that was. I have to ask you, as someone who probably will never go to space, I can't afford it. What was that view like? I mean, so few people have been able to see our planet from that perspective. Um, can you describe it to everyone watching?
Yeah, I think, and nothing prepares you. And for me, that was the same, like on my first scuba dives too. Like,
Uh,
oh my gosh, look at the color, the life that is under the surface, of this ocean, and how that just opens up to you. It's like, the pictures, the videos, the conversations just don't do it
mhm,
justice. The same is true, of course, for, looking out your window back at Earth, and it's overwhelmingly, impressively beautiful. I mean, I remember when first getting to space, and the first thing you want to do is float out of your seat and get to a window and see it. And the first thing I remember thinking is, wow, I'm here. I'm in space.
mhm.
Like this dream thing coming alive. And wow, I'm alive. I'm here. I'm in space. We made it. And then that view out the window. And the first thing then is like, wow, I live on a planet. We all know that. Talk about what you learn in kindergarten, right? I mean, you know that. And yet it's the reality of it, just like that Earthrise image, like, oh my gosh, that's who and where we are. We are all together on a planet in space. And that reality it's right in your face through the window of the space station. And then for me, the easiest way I had to describe it was like I did for my 7-year-old son. He was 7 when I flew the first time, and on the phone with him the first time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, imagine the brightest light bulb you've ever seen. You've splattered with all the colors you know Earth to be. And then you go to turn it on and you almost have to like not open. You got to kind of squint and get your eyes adjusted to it. When you first, it's so crystal clear and glowing and colorful, and it's against the blackest black you've ever imagined, and it's moving and alive. And yeah, and then you're just in awe of that every time you see
As
it.
an artist, you had to try to sketch that. I'm assuming, like you
Yeah.
must have been up there trying to wait to draw and
Yeah.
reproduce
Well,
that.
I mean, I brought a paint kit with me. I brought a watercolor kit with me and was able to paint while I was there. And that, I mean, that experience, kind of that opportunity to bring something like human that I like doing here on Earth with me to space, and then to try to capture the memory of it. That's a really very special personal memory of the whole experience.
Well, you've already mentioned one of the lines I was going to read to you next. You have a mantra in your book. This is, "We
Yeah.
live on a planet. We are all Earthlings, and the only border that matters is the thin blue line of atmosphere that protects us all." Can you tell me
Yeah.
about that concept?
Yeah, I think, I mean, what are the more basic things that we have in common, right? Right? And in all the complexity of space flight, I think, for me, it came down to these relationships as human beings that we have, that we've developed through this program, and all of what we're doing that's ultimately about improving life on Earth. But those were the three simple lessons, and I would argue profound lessons that I came home with, that I don't they're with me every day now. And that's, I mean, that's one of the motivations with the book, is I want everyone to be thinking about those three things every day. And then I want them to leverage them in a way that says, okay, and it's like the others have talked about, what's my call to action in this, right? What do I do with what I've become aware of, what I've discovered, that I want to share with everyone else? And how do I get other people to realize these things, grasp that, and then really accept, the responsibility, I think, of their role as crewmates and not passengers here on Spaceship Earth.
One of the things you address in your book is how so many people ask you, why do we go to space? Why can't we do this on Earth? Why do we spend so much money on space exploration? And I thought your response in your book was beautiful to that. Do you mind
Yeah,
sharing?
well, I mean, or the simple, like, well, all the money we spend in space is actually spent down here on Earth. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that's another thing we should know, right? But it's true. And then I know a lot, in the news lately, with a lot of the new commercial flights going on and stuff, there's big questions. I head off next week. I don't know if some of our other authors are heading this way too, but to COP26 in the
Mhm,
UK. And I know that's going to be the question. Why aren't we
mhm,
spending all that money here on Earth to solve the problems here on Earth? Why are we sending it to space?
mhm,
And we could spend all day talking about this. Everything we're doing off the Earth is for the Earth. Um, there's a really wonderful another author, Larry Niven, sci-fi writer,
mhm,
who has
mhm.
a quote, and I have it in the book, that and it doesn't get attributed to him often. So I always try to make sure people know this, but it's like, if the dinosaurs had had a space program, they wouldn't have gone extinct.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly. And then the second part of it to me is even better. It's like, and if we don't, it'll be our own fault. I mean, again, simple yet really, really telling. And um, yeah, I hope people will read the book and look for those kinds of examples in there too, about, the
Mhm.
science that's happening in space. When I think about the three authors we just heard from, and the common things that were coming in, I was scribbling notes like water and chemistry. Jennifer mentioned, like, that the chemistry is all around us too. Everything is interconnected.
Mhm.
I think every subject we want to pick, there's an interconnectivity to it. Making that relatable is so important. It's what I love about the other three as well. I tried to do that in Back to Earth too. This bringing sci-fi to sci-fact,
Mhm.
that's happening because of what we're doing in space. We are able to measure and understand the health and well-being of our planet, or the not so healthy aspects of it, through the observation of Earth that we do from space. And that's with the instrumentation and the probes and the satellites. And it's with us as human beings, opening our eyes and our hearts and minds to what we're seeing below us too. So,
Well, Nicole, I will walk away from today's session just filled with optimism in terms of all the hope and just optimism of what the next generation can do.
yes.
Uh, Part of your book, you invite your reader to quote, be a guardian. And every chapter has such amazing advice for the way we should live our lives. Act like everything is local, respect the blue line, live life, you know, not as a crew, not as a passenger, right? Go slow to go fast. It's those titles themselves can help us live a better life. I'm curious, can you talk about those ideas that can carry us forward?
Yeah, I mean, and that's, that was the intention, was not to give people like this checklist of thou shalt do these
Hmm.
things, and then you'll help solve all the problems. It was really, I really tried to look at this way that these ways, I guess, that's what each of the chapter headings are, is these ways that we come together peacefully, successfully, and have been doing so for over 20 years on the
Hmm.
International Space Station, right? And that international word I think is important. That's 5 international space agencies representing 15 different countries, somehow peacefully and successfully working on this mission. And we're doing it on a mechanical life support system, right? This place in space that we've built to mimic what Earth does for us naturally, that was put so perfectly here for us. And somehow, while we're a crew on that station, we recognize that, man, I got to pay attention to how much CO2 is in my atmosphere. I've got to know how much clean drinking water I have. I've got to be aware of the integrity of my thin metal hull and the health and well-being of all my crewmates, because those are things that my survival depends on. And then
Hmm.
once those things are in place, we can thrive. And that's, that is the underlying message. All those ways are just how we're living as crewmates on a space station. And I think, I understand it's order of magnitude, many orders of magnitude when you talk about, 7 people on a station and 7+ billion here on a planet. But I think the rules of engagement still apply.
Well,
Yeah.
Nicole, thank you.